Hey guys, it's Mike, the Wrestling Guy Smith. I'm gonna do something a little different. Because Steven Larson got me thinking. What if, right? Because they got me thinking about Vince McMahon and the crazy stuff he's done over the years. So I'm gonna do a number. I'm gonna do a top 12. How many times Vince McMahon pressed the panic button? This is a countdown. So number one, the NWO coming to the WWE in 2002. And you guys, before I even get into this video, and I'm gonna tell you this, guys, because you're gonna ask me this question probably when you guys listen to this video. Like I said, the reason why I'm putting that at number one is because that was the first time that Vince pressed the panic button. The reason why he pressed the panic button in 2002 was because the fact that Ric Flair, Ric Flair. Ric Flair was the owner of Raw and SmackDown. So the prior to the week before, Vince did a contract signing with Rick to tell Rick to sign both the brands over back to make Vince McMahon. He was about to sign it, but he became Rick kind of had a second thought about it because Stone Cold Steve Austin came down and told Rick to tell him to rip up the contract and tell Vince that he's not gonna sign it. So he's sitting there trying to finishing his to sign the contract, but he rips the contract and throws it into Vince McMahon's face. That's how that goes. So the week after, the SmackDown after that contract segment, this is almost part of the Ruthless Aggression era before it became the Ruthless Aggression era. So he says to the WWE universe at the time, or the WWF fans at the time, he says to them, "Oh, Raw and SmackDown are dying, or the WWF is a cancer and it's dying because of Ric Flair." So he says he's gonna give it a lethal injection, which we didn't know was the NWO, the three men of the NWO, which is Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. So the reason why I say that's number one on the list is because Vince pressing the panic button with the NWO was because of the fact that they pretty much got through WCW, like all the like kind of like the fallout of WCW, and I'm gonna talk about it in my second thing, was the fact that he kind of got scared of Flair. He kind of got scared of Flair about him owning both the company because they had better matches, and at the time it was kind of getting to the Ruthless Aggression era where there was a lot of new storylines, there's a lot of different titles going, a lot of title changes, things were changing, and it wasn't just it was becoming attitude, but it was coming more into aggression than attitude. It was still controversy, there was still nudity, there was still nudity and stuff, but it was becoming more of a entertainment rather than a federation. So that's number one. Number two, Vince bringing Vince bringing the WWE versus WCW. What I mean by that number two segment, meaning Vince bringing Eric Bischoff to Monday Night Raw 2003. Why do I put that in number? Why do I put that in number two? I'll tell you. Is because everybody doesn't really know the full story of Eric Bischoff and Vince McMahon. So I'm not gonna get into the Monday Night Raws because it's a long thing. So back in the '90s, with the Monday Night Raw being over, and Vince buying the company of WCW and putting Taz and all these new superstars that he got from ECW and WCW, Eric Bischoff thought, hey, Eric. So pretty much the rivalry between them pretty much was over because WCW was dead or died, and he pretty much just said, you know what, I give up. I have a little bit more money, so he basically sold all the assets. So he was broke. He needed a job. So Vince McMahon basically hired Eric Bischoff to give Raw this cutting edge thing because he was a great GM in WCW because they didn't really have a main GM or creative or a mindset to be. So with basically the NWO being broken up again and reforming in 2003, but I'm gonna get to that too. He brought Eric Bischoff in to make Raw the better show. So when he brought him in, he basically made Triple H World Heavyweight Champion, and brought Scott Steiner, and then brought Goldberg and all these other people, right? So then, like I said, but like I said, that's why I think the reason why I'm gonna put that at number two is because Vince. This isn't the second time he's pushed the panic button, but I think he was more afraid of WCW kind of coming back in the ashes. Like I said, it was kind of like that. He was afraid. He was afraid. He was afraid of WCW coming back to bite him in the neck. So that's number two. My number three countdown because I got plenty more people. I got a lot more. This is gonna be a little bit more exciting than Stephen Larson's, but listen. Number three, the NWO being remade, or the new NWO 2003. Why is that my number three? Vince hit the panic button because how does this sound, guys? Right? So you got three guys, you know, the NWO biggest faction, wrestling faction in history, right? So after Hogan kind of went good and went back to his like Hulkamania thing after he dropped the whole wrestling, dropped the Hollywood Hulk Hogan thing and he dropped it and he went back to yellow and red. I mean red and yellow. He so it was just Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. So Kevin Nash and Scott Hall thought this is like the SmackDown before Raw. So they're on Raw trying to recruit guys. So they come up to, the old, we're from, the clique, which is Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Kevin Nash. So at the time, Triple H was already doing his own thing and he was already doing his own thing and becoming a WWE superstar. He was already world champion. He was already in his own thing with Evolution at the time before, So Kevin Nash thought it was a good idea to reform it because he kind of felt that NWO wasn't really getting its respect anymore. It's lost respect through the decades. So, as you may know, 2003 was a weird time for WWE as well. But like I said, so he gets the guys who formed the first WCW, the original three or the original five guys. So it's him, Scott Hall, Big Show used to be the Giant, aka the Giant, Booker T, and the new member Shawn Michaels. But we didn't know he was a new member until the Raw that was the following Raw, that it gave us many hints that who would be the fourth member. So Kevin Nash comes out with Booker T, Scott Hall, X Pac, and then he said we got a lot of thought of our six. Remember, it'll be Shawn Michaels. The reason why I put that at number three is because it was weird and bringing the bringing the NWO to the WWE at the time wasn't really good for business because Vince wanted to he wanted WWE to suck because of the NWO, which that wasn't going to happen. And because the fact is that because Scott Hall and because Kevin Nash are masters of backstage politics, just like Hulk Hogan is, it wasn't really different. I think he was more afraid of them being a nuisance on SmackDown than Raw. But I think he was more afraid of them actually being a bigger faction because they could pretty much just take over the WWE and change things. And I think that's why he put the panic button. That's why he put Shawn Michaels, Booker T, and X-Pac to make them stay grounded to them. Like I said, I don't hate, and like I said, but that's the reason why I think he hit the panic button. But number four, and this is the worst thing. This is I got plenty more people. Like I said, I got plenty more guys. Number four, Paul Heyman becoming the general manager to SmackDown. So this is gonna sound weird, but like around 2000, 2002, 2003, like when SmackDown was actually becoming SmackDown again, like 2003, 2002, 2004, they brought in, Paul Heyman. So after he kind of, like, after the ECW kind of got destroyed in the Alliance, and Vince bought all the people from ECW, like Taz, Christian, all these dudes they brought, and the invasion angle was done. So Vince McMahon Vince McMahon thought it would be cool to bring a manager to SmackDown because they needed kind of a vision, and SmackDown was kind of being under control because of the oversaturation with the brands and stuff. So, since Ric Flair was gone, they brought in Paul Heyman. And if you guys don't know who Paul Heyman is, I'm just gonna give you like a quick little like summary of who he is. He's basically this dude who basically created a wrestling brand and basically became the biggest psychopath in wrestling to know. And because he's like the guy, so like I said, the reason why I'm gonna say number 4 is gonna hit the panic button because I got plenty of worse things was the fact that he thought he could actually make SmackDown a success, which he did to some point. And he brought Brock Lesnar. But the reason why I think this is number 4 hitting the panic button is because of the fact that he was scared that ECW would come back to haunt him. And relatively it did the following 2 years ago, which was in 2005, 2006. So 2 years ago, 2 years ago, after he left left SmackDown to be, left general manager to be left SmackDown. He quit as general manager for SmackDown after the 2004 draft for lottery. So, and he did. So basically, the reason why I say this because he was afraid that ECW was going to come back. Because Paul Heyman knew how to make money. He knew how he knew how to make people kiss his ass. He did. So he did, and that was the thing. I kind of think that Vince was more afraid of. I really think he was afraid of that. Paul Heyman was going to ruin it, but I think he thought he was going to do a good job. I don't really know. Because he jumps around. Like, Paul Heyman's not a bad guy, but he jumps around a lot. So my number 5 thing, and this was the worst segment in WWE history, which we don't even talk about it, but it's alive. And I'll tell you this. ECW versus WWE 2005 One Night Stand. Okay, One Night Stand 2005. Why I put that as my number 5 is because, okay, remember how I just told you guys this like 2 minutes ago about how Paul Heyman was the worst guy. So imagine this, right? It's 2005. Eric Bischoff is still GM of Raw. Vince is still crazy loony Vince as we know today. So we thought, he had this big idea because him and Paul Heyman have this big history, this big rivalry with WCW versus ECW, right? So what would be a better way? So since he's in control of WWE with Edge and all these guys, right? Paul Heyman thought that WWE would lose to the ECW. Because he said he could make his own company, which was ECW, and make it a brand again. So he brings in guys like Tommy Dreamer, the Sandman, the Franchise, all these old ECW guys, Rob Van Dam, right? So, and Taz. So now, they get into this big fight, this big promo battle. And Vince comes out and says, you know what, Paul? If you want to make this a fight, let's make this a fight. Let's make this a brand thing. So, ECW used to be in the Albert Hall back in like the 90s and 2000s before they got bought. So he thought, so basically WWE came to One Night Stand. So it was basically all the dudes from SmackDown and Raw. So it was basically JBL, all these dudes from SmackDown, all these jobbers from Raw, and John Cena and Lita, right? So nowadays, the reason why I think this was the worst segment because Vince was scared of his the two biggest rivalries that he had with the two biggest dudes he hired having a rivalry, and he was more afraid that WWE was going to be the fallout because of it. So he told them to do One Night Stand WWE and ECW versus One Night Stand and John Cena, because the thing was, John Cena wasn't a bad guy, and I think One Night Stand wasn't a bad idea, but it was just kind of poorly executed. Because like pretty much Tommy Dreamer was done with ECW. He was done being a wrestler because they changed a lot of things, and ECW could have been something if they actually had the talent. Like I said, I'm gonna make a thing about that too, and I feel that. But I got plenty. I got another thing to. I got another thing to make, guys. So, like I said, this is gonna be about. I would say this is gonna be a 20-minute video because I'm making 12. So my number six thing I'm gonna talk about. And dear God, I don't even want to talk about this one, but I am. The 2004 draft lottery. Why? I'm gonna tell you why. Because the fact is, this is the worst draft lottery I've saw. Because it wasn't. It was just an extra long segment. Because they would choose one, which basically it was the guys who from SmackDown were probably at like a semi like okay level at best. So it basically was it was like the jobber lottery. And I mean by the jobber lottery because they would get Tajiri, then they would get Spike Dudley, then they would get Sean Stasiak, then they would get all these dudes that they. Then the crazy thing is that Paul Heyman thought he was gonna get Triple H, and Triple H would have been great on SmackDown, but he would have tanked. He would have sucked at being on SmackDown. He would have sucked, and like it was the worst segment because the thing was, like Paul thought he was gonna do something, and he thought he was gonna get the biggest. Like I think he got the really. It was like the short end of the stick. But the reason why I put that at number six and it's the worst segment of all time was because Vince and him coming up with the draft lottery for Raw and SmackDown was the dumbest thing in the world, even now. Because the draft could have been something more if they actually gave a crap about it, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it's a bad thought. But I'm gonna say I got another segment to get through, guys. I have like five more segments to get through. So number segment, and I like to call this segment the worst thing, the number seven the worst time that Vince hitting the panic button was the fact that he got Scott Big Papa Pump Steiner. Why do I think that's the seventh one? Because his push was the worst sign ever. Like I said, it was the worst thing in the world. Why? Because I'm gonna tell you why. Because getting Scott Steiner is the worst thing you could have done in 2003. Because he kind of made Nitro and WCW so awful to watch because the guy was literally a juicer, but he was an idiot being a juicer though. And the thing was he had a great push, but he just sucked being him, and because he thought he would make money and he thought he'd get the better deal. And I'm gonna tell you why, because Scott Steiner to this day is the greatest wrestler alive, but back then was awful. Because I think Vince was afraid that he was gonna get knocked out by Scott Steiner. I think that's why he put the panic button and let him go. The number eight segment I'm gonna talk about. And dear God, it's a doozy. Dear God, it's a doozy. Evolution reforms. And I mean by that, without Randy Orton. Oh wait, no. I got a better segment for that. RKO rises. Why do I think that's the worst thing? So picture this, guys. Right? You take Randy Orton, the youngest world champion at 26, teaming up with Edge with his R-rated RKO thing. So I mean R-rated superstar thing, right? So like the prior like two like I would say not a server a elimination chamber like 2 months prior to that, Orton won the world title and he wasn't supposed to win, but he won. So They celebrate and they celebrate him, Flair, Triple H, Batista, right? So he celebrates with them, and they all do the. They celebrate with him. He put him up on the shoulders. He won the title. He's the first guy to ever win it, right? So, and they take it as an insult. So Batista and Triple H and Flair do the thumbs down, and they Batista bomb him. So he feels betrayed. He goes after Triple H, but he says, "I got a better idea. Instead of me, why would I be part of a Evolution reunion, then I can be a part of a different team." So that's when Edge comes out. So they believe they're gonna be, they're gonna be Evolution, Degeneration. They're gonna be Evolution. So the reason I think it was the worst idea, and I think he put the panic button because he didn't know what to do with Randy Orton because they didn't, because he had a okay singles push and it wasn't really pushing until about 2012, 2000, like 2010, 2012. He didn't push, and I think he didn't really have a solid push. But I think he was more afraid of Randy actually quitting or going to SmackDown. So, number 9. Like I said, number 9. And I'm going to tell you this is going to be a doozy too. The career of Johnny Nitro. Why? Because I'm going to tell you why. Because in, I would say, July or June of 2007, going into, like 2006, going into 2007, this guy named John Hannigan, formerly known as John Morrison and Johnny Nitro. So he's this big, he was a good guy. He had a good push. He didn't get into Raw until like much later. So around, I would say, 2010, Vince McMahon told him to change his name to it because he didn't like Nitro. He just didn't like it because it brought back the WCW Nitro, brought back bad memories. So he tells him to change his name. So Johnny Nitro doesn't change his name till like later, and Vince and him, it was a backstage thing, and Vince just said, you know what, if you don't change your name, you're fired. So he did, and that's what I mean. Like that's why I think it's the number 8 segment because there's a lot more. I got 3 more to do, guys. Just hold on. I got 3 more to do. So number 9, Paul London smiling at Vince McMahon. The reason why I think this is the number 9 segment because it was horrible. Like Paul London, I didn't know who he was because I've never seen Paul London ever. I've never seen a Paul London matchup because he was Paul London, but I never saw him, right. So the thing is, Paul London had this weird like habit of smiling at people, and the one person you do not smiling at is Vince McMahon. And Vince took that as like an insult, like of him being too happy. So that was like he had a really botched career, and I think he sucked tremendously. He was a great cruiserweight. He had everything to be great. Number 10. I hate mentioning this name. Dear God, I hope they don't never bring him back. His name, number 10. JB Bradshaw is gone. JBL rises. Why do I think that's the worst thing that Vince has ever done? So like you take the two greatest tag, two of the two greatest members of the greatest tag team ever called, which was the Acolytes and the APA, right? So you take Farouk or Ron Simmons, greatest technical wrestler, greatest. He's really strong. He's great, right? So you take Bradshaw, JBL, from they were the inseparable, like the greatest tag teams ever, like the greatest tag team ever to win the belts. I think they had like a 13, 14 times title rate, like higher, like probably lower than the Dudley Boys, right? So the reason is, and this is like a SmackDown prior and a SmackDown after. So in SmackDown of 2003, I would say I don't know the exact date, but a SmackDown prior to it, when Paul Heyman became general manager, he wanted to change a couple things, notably the APA. So the APA was this biggest. The APA was the biggest tag team. So what would a better way to be splitting him up? So he thought he was gonna fire. So um, Bradshaw thought he was gonna Paul was gonna fire Fruit, which is APA. I mean Rod Simmons. So he goes in the office, he kicks in, and he says I'm not gonna fire him. Why would I fire him? And he gets he gets in he goes to conclusions. And Paul Heyman says I've got very powerful friends that can publish your book. And he becomes rich. He becomes rich and he takes the deal and he says okay. And so he basically mean like it was a classic case of friendship versus money, and Bradshaw took the money. And so a SmackDown prior, so around a SmackDown after, Paul Heyman introduces a new, a rich guy. His name, you may have heard him. The APA or no more. He makes a promo about it, and then about 5 minutes later, what happened? Like what happened to Bradshaw? Bradshaw comes back, but he's like, my name isn't Bradshaw. It's John Layfield Bradshaw, or JBL for short. And he says to them, says to the universe, I'm better, I'm richer than you, I can make more money. So his whole persona got changed, and I think Vince was so afraid that he wasn't gonna, and I think that's why he hit the panic button of him being JBL, because he was hitting the panic button because he was afraid. He was he was afraid, and I think he was afraid of him being a bigger star than he was. And now that JBL's the legends of JBL, which I understand completely, but what happened? Like I like JBL, don't get me wrong, I like him, but I just don't know. It's like I wonder if he still rich. Like I wonder if the money is still there, but I think he's broke. Could you take a commentator job? But anyway, number 11. I don't even want to talk about this one. This was the worst idea ever. Number 11. 'Cause I got a lot. I have to think of the point. Oh yeah, number 11. The Live Sex Show, Raw 2006. Number 11, the Live Sex Show. Why do I think this is the worst thing that Vince hit the panic button? Because why would you have a live sex show on your wrestling brand? Why? And I'll give you the backstory of that because I'm gonna give you guys a small summary. So Edge and Lita. So they were a big like power couple in the WWE. Not a real couple because they never married each other. So Edge won the WWE Championship from John Cena at New Year's Revolution. So he wins it, right? So he says, "We're gonna do a live sex celebration." He makes a promo to Raw after New Year's resolution. So they get a bed, and Lita comes out. I think they're having sex, and she's um, removing her bra and everything, and they have a live sex show. Unbeknownst, unbeknownst to them, John Cena comes out first, and he tries to fu Edge onto the bed that him and Lita are in the ring with, and they almost had sex on. So he looks under the covers, and he sees Lita naked, right? And then why do I think this? Because like I think Vince was panicking because it was the dumbest segment, but it was the craziest thing that he's ever done on Raw. Number 11, which I think this is because this is the new one. The Bray Wyatt Blues Clues promo or gimmick. I would say the Bray Wyatt Blues Clues gimmick. Why do I think that's the 12th time, the final time? It's because you take a highly decorated guy like Bray Wyatt, make him a crazy. He's already nuts and already crazy with his gimmick. Make him be a dumb guy and turn him into Blues Clues and Steve with Joe as a Blues Clues gimmick. Call it Bray's Funhouse. Why I think this is the dumbest thing is because Bray is not a child. He is not a fan of like he's not a like he doesn't have any children as fans. He's psychotic. Like, dude, the segment's so bad because why would you do that, right? And it doesn't make any sense because it's not. It's like a weird, creepy gimmick. It's like a weird. It would be like, what would we do if Blue's Clues didn't if it existed in 2019 and it doesn't? But anyway, guys, this is my top 12 for WWE Vince hitting the panic button. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.